they are watching a Ugandan television station. That's largely because young people are in charge. Happens each time you bring Ugandan young people, or if you may, African young people in charge of things. I also still categorize myself as a young person. That's when you see some of the things I do on air. There's a 21-year-old inside my head, locked inside a 46-year-old body. How about operates? I also don't know. Good morning to all of you, and thank you so much for being here with us. We're launching something to do with young people, and it's a good thing to see so many of them on camera, so many of them managing technology. And that's largely because in our nation, 78%, I'm talking about 78, yes, you heard me right, 78% of this population is somewhere under the age of 30, and we're talking about 23% between the age of 18 and 30. That's a huge demographic. If you're to harness that, bring that into creating jobs and employing other young people, then you're in business. If you don't, then you deal with the problem, because when they get disenfranchised, then they are going to get radicalized, then they will want to leave the continent and go elsewhere. Then 1 million of them will die somewhere in an ocean, and then you have a huge crisis. So the question we're asking here is, now that COVID-19 has taught us some lessons, what can do this? That's about 10 years before we get into SDG time, about 20 years again before another landmark there. What can we do now to make sure that young people get on top of things, especially now that we're going into our political season? Let's just bring in conversation here. Watch the video. When I come back, I will introduce my panel, and then we'll have some conversation that you will tell your children's children and their children about. Watch this.
Youth unemployment poses a serious political, economic, and social challenge to the country, including its leadership. The country is at risk of losing the potential benefits of its largest age demographic, as many of the youth are unemployed due to the insufficient of decent jobs. While jobs are key to moving young people out of poverty, they are also crucial to preventing the type of marginalization that can spill into radicalization and conflict. The few youths that are employed are in vulnerable employment characterized by low pay and job insecurity. To help solve the problem, this will not only enable the youth to get out of unemployment, but also empower them to offer jobs to others. However, the youth are unable to tap into available economic opportunities due to the absence of appropriate startup financing products for young entrepreneurs.
One of the biggest challenges we faced as a startup in Uganda is access to financing, and this is really very similar to most of the young startups in the country.
We are an export company, so reaching customers has been a bit of a problem because cost of air freight have more than doubled, which increases the costs for the final customer. And we've been grappling around how to deal with that. And of course, we had another challenge prior to COVID, which was the locust invasion and the premature rains.
The youth generally face challenges of access to the right talent to develop their respective enterprises. Many of them, they say they don't need the money, but they need access to quality talent. And lastly, the challenge has been lack of business support, which is really very key for entrepreneurs to take their enterprises to the next level.
While Uganda's youth are renowned for being highly enterprising, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, many of these enterprises suffer from high mortality rates. The outbreak of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has not only caused a global health emergency and created new challenges, disrupting economic activities, but also threatening the survival of many small and medium enterprises, SMEs, thus aggravating the youth unemployment situation in Uganda. Despite the strides the government of Uganda has made in addressing the issue, including youth livelihood problem, wealth creation, green jobs problem, Songhai pilot initiative, money for circles, these efforts have not sufficiently addressed the issue.
Thank you very much. That's quite enlightening there. And I'd just like to introduce the panel, a very high-level panel that we have to have a conversation on this. And I'll begin with Mr. Gideon, or Gideon, depending on who taught you English when you first started out. But again, he is the Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation here in Uganda. Gideon, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Next to him is Honorable Miss Lillian Aber. She is the young person's representative, or should I say the president's representative to young person. She is a presidential advisor there, isn't that true? But she also chairs the National Youth Council. We will certainly be happy to hear your thoughts this morning. And then next there is His Excellency Henk Jan Bakker, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. He's very Dutch there. Good morning, and thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. And next to him is Honorable Amelia Chambade is certainly coming, but Honorable Natuala Chiji is with us. She's always been with young people, whether that is in football or talking to them, and has built a fantastic relationship with young musicians over some time. Honorable, it's such a pleasure having you around.
Thank you. Good morning.
Fantastic. Then we do have Elsie Atafa. She is certainly the lady who has convened us here together. She is from the United Nations Development Program, the largest in the development business in the world. I think that's a fact. Elsie, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Fantastic. Then His Excellency Hiemo Kilonzo, he is the High Commissioner of our good friends, the Kenyans and our brothers and sisters in that direction. Thank you so much for being with us. Fantastic. He and I have had long conversations about who of our two nations is best at football and rugby. Those never end. But this time we'll be talking young people. And lastly, but by no means least, is Miss Anne Juko. She is the Chief Executive at Great Stanbic Bank here in Uganda. And I'm not going to be saying that where the conversation was just before we go on. That's for different conversations. But let's begin off with you, Honorable Minister. We do have quite a number of young people, and many say that several are either unemployed or underemployed. And there's just about 1 million of them coming into the job market every year, which poses both an opportunity and a challenge. From as much as you know, what is the government doing to deal with this? And if I may, what are the major causes of unemployment that you have found out?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kasumba, the young person. Allow me, first of all, to thank MVP and the Stanbic Bank for organizing this initiative. And it's quite timely, the fact that it's engaged, it's targeting the young people, and coming up with an initiative entitled Youth4Business. It's a great idea, and on behalf of the government, I wish to thank you quite frankly. It is a good initiative. Thank you. So we are here to primarily talk about unemployment with the young people, causes, and what the government has done in that regard. It's also important to know that Uganda is, needless to mention, we have echoed it over and over again, that it's now number 2 youngest country in the world. And that means that it's either way, positive and negative. that if you want to look at it in terms of the negative side, it's just that every adult has a huge number to look after. It's just in terms of the dependency ratio. That if you say that my home has young people, it means that you are the one looking after them. So to every adult, you find that there are hundreds and hundreds of people looking on to that person for their survival. And having said that, it's very, very, very important and it's a resource to have these people with you. First of all, in terms of the labor force, in terms of consumables, people to consume your products, people to skill, people to look into, that is the young people. So what is happening now is that the quality of the young force that we have is lacking skills. Greatly, there's a big gap between the skills that we do have and the skills that are required and desired. And if we talk about now, the time for the COVID, it would say made matters worse, but even then, it would be an advantage to tap into, because it makes us jump, somersault into the e-businesses and how to look at ourselves as critical thinkers, as opposed to moving out and loitering and then settling out. We are looking at the world with e-thinking, e-business, e-work, e-communication, to the fact that very few people will be able to travel immediately after opening of many boundaries and airports all over the world. So in the absence of so much traffic moving on, how will you sell your products? How will you look at one person coming to your business? So that makes it so timely to have IT and to have people drawn to the attention of me alone. How can I rediscover myself? What did I study? What do I know? What comes out of my hands? What comes out of my house? We shall have a system where you only have you have the machine taking the temperature in the hospital and telling the nurse that the person on bed X is this temperature, and there'll be nobody to move around to take these temperatures. Because when you compare the disease with the economy, you only have an answer, say, go in and look at ICT. So the current situation has brought the government into discovering that we need to re-emphasize industrialization and put it on board by Uganda, build Uganda. So we can have people buy their own things and prepare them their own, but reduce movement and emphasize IT. So we are looking at the impact that has made the youth employment even a little bit worse, like loss of jobs, closure of some of the businesses, low labor productivity, decline in households. But we are taking it seriously with instead restructuring, rescaling, retooling, and emphasizing ICT so that together we can arrive at the same destination.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nachwala G. If I may bring you in, Gideon here, Agenda 2030 envisages, tongue twisting in the morning, envisages strong partnerships with the private sector slated to address development challenges. Now, because you are the head of the private sector here, the federation that brings those two together, what is the private sector doing to contribute to addressing the unemployment challenge in Uganda? Yeah, you should.
Thank you very much, Samson, and a very good morning to our viewers out there. First of all, let me make a statement that what bothers all of us through this life is how to get into the future and sustain livelihoods. And that is what is bothering business people, politicians, the families, how to get nurture, mentor this young person so that they have a sustainable, that all the protocols, all the agendas that we have seen, whether it's strategy or business, it's all about life. Now, the very first thing that we must do is to prepare this individual to get into the future. How? By skilling them, by mentorship, by inspiring them. And how do you sustain a livelihood in the future is to give someone the capacity in terms of training so that they are able to get that innovation, that entrepreneurship that they want to have when they grow up and pick on any business that they want to have. The future of innovation and entrepreneurship lies in that. And in the private sector, we are saying the future of digital belongs to the 78%. How we prepare them to build this human capital matters a lot for any company, for any country, for any business. When you employ, you must train and train it. If they are going to fit in the labor market, and you're not training them to go out of business tomorrow, when we invest, we are investing into the future. So we must have the labor force that really supports business and innovation. And to do that, we must invest in training and training. So that is critically important.
Just before you continue, when you say we must train, we have primary schools, we have secondary schools, we have tertiary institutions. But they done that job. What sort of training are you talking about?
Now, when you look at employment or the labor market, you're looking at major things. You're looking at someone having gone to school, you've got the intellectual ability to be able to speak to society and to speak English like I'm speaking English. But that is not enough. You must have the hands-on skills. You must have the practical skills. You must be deployed. And to be deployed, you must have two sets of skills, the hard skills and the soft skills. So it's not enough about going to school, but you must be trained, and training that means. And it's not enough to have skills. Employers are not simply looking for degrees, certificates, and hard skills. They are looking for the soft skills.
What are you, the private sector, doing about that?
Now, what we're doing, we have two programs already run at the private sector. One of them is supported by the one called Skills Development. And what we are doing is, we are doing this set of things. One is to support and promote internships. So we are working with vocational training. We are not simply training people to go and find jobs. We want to work with employers, and that's what we're doing. And we are calling it employer-led short-term training. So that we apply, we get this person on the job, and we do on the job training directly. So we get experts to help entrepreneurs do that with them. Then secondly, we are also doing the soft skills, the mentorship, the coaching, the inspiration. We get people who have succeeded in business come and talk. What is the journey, the business journey? How does someone stay through? Because most of the time, these young people think that when they finish school and get into business, they quit the following day. No, people have sustained business, they have had ups and downs, but they have been able to succeed. And with patience, perseverance, persistence, and so on. And this is what we need to tell the story. So we are doing that again directly with the formal sector. But we're also working with the informal sector. We know that this is the country where more than 60% of business is actually the informal sector. The women, the youth, the associations. So we need to get there. First of all, to formalize, because until you formalize, you'll not be able to walk in standing to keep that money. They are looking for formal entities. So you must register your business. You will not be able to get the partnership. You will not be able to find market information and enter markets if you are informed, if you are in the shadows. So we invite that matters also on how to get out of the shadows, formal, and be able to use with the program. But we also work with Master Foundation, through what we call the Youth structure. And this is where we are linking the youth groups, the women groups, associations who are creating projects to farms, to industries that are able to find markets. Because I think the mistake that we have been doing, we have been exposed these youth, these women, small as they are, informal as they are, to sophisticated markets that are demanding challenging standards. And until we are able to organize them at the farm level, into associations, farmer groups, and so on and so forth, cooperatives, to be able to gather the volumes, to be able to defend the standards, they cannot be able to sustain the market.
If you just joined us, it is the launch of the Youth4Business Innovation and Entrepreneurship facility there. Just before we switch conversations, let me bring in Lady Lillian here. Is the name Aber or Aber? Aber. Thank you there. Your boss has really tried in as much as he can to help young people sitting with envelopes, khaki, colored, giving samples here and there, giving to Bakanabe, giving to Kalewe. I mean, he's moved around, but youth continue to still be unemployed. What are the drivers of youth unemployment that you have found out? And can you detail some of the ways in which you think they can be dealt with, in addition to what you lords have tried? Want to turn the mic on? Fantastic.
I would like to begin with thanking UNDP and Stanbic and all other partners that love the young people and support the young people. It's my prayer that they keep looking young and healthy. Yes, about the envelope, my boss, I think when you say my boss, you mean the president.
Yes.
Yeah, the issue should continue giving the young people the envelope. That's okay. That's one angle handling them. But the main gist of the matter is that when we're addressing issues of the young people and looking at unemployment, we have to address two categories of young people. We have these young people who have gained formal education, those who are skilled, the doctors, the journalists like you, and the teachers and all these other kind of professions. Those who graduate out of the universities and are floating on the streets, they don't have what to do. Those are the biggest problem, because we have to first deal with their mindset because of the system of education that we have in this country that manufactures people to believe that getting a white-collar job and the next day you're driving a good car, irrespective of how you got it, no one cares, society doesn't care. That is the first question. So the immediate solution is, I think we need to do a kind of amalgamated system of education, where we have this formal trainings of becoming a doctor, but what is that other added skill? If you are not in the hospital treating patients, what else can you do? If you are still waiting for the opportunity to get employed, what other skills can you do to survive? We have to have an amalgamated system of education. Now, looking at the young people.
Just before you continue on that, because as you explained the reasons for unemployment, you mentioned that the education is wrong. So should we blame the government for wrong education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have to restructure the system of education. I would say that without fear, because we have graduates who are on the street and can actually write a clear application letter. This is all over, and we know that. So what are we doing? Passing exam is what we look at. We are training this, okay, we have to pass an exam and get these good grades, but at the end of the day, you cannot defend the good grades. I know, for example, many of the students that have gone to Macquarie University with first-class degrees, but those who have got added skills, good communication, good customer care, but they had mediocre marks, have gotten jobs. So this is for a fact. Looking at another group of the young people who have not managed to go to school, these ones are eagerly waiting for skills training, and they are ready to take on the skills training, but we do not have enough technical schools. My brother Kasumba, what the government and all the partners should do is investing efforts in a pool that looks at training the young people in different fields like carpentry, electrical engineering, even if at the certificate level. This will provide solutions for them. But we also need to look at industrialization. If we are focusing on our budget, we should put more of the planning and budgeting industrialization, because that is where the job markets are. But not forgetting the issue of value addition, not forgetting the issue of market linkages for the young people. Of course, you have challenges of financing. I think we all agree that any young person who works in the bank today or tomorrow will come back very discouraged. The lowest loan you can get is around 20%. That's the lowest. But you come up and you begin with paying the taxes straight away. For you to register, you need to give it to Kampala, you have to pay KCCA, you have to pay URA, you have to pay the rent. So all these things, we must really have a collective effort to say that we have to gather all resources. There's a lot of misguided duplications of efforts on handling youth unemployment. You find private sector is doing this, government is doing that, the NGO ones are doing this. You know, we need to put all these efforts in one pool, plan together and engage the young people on the table and plan as we consult. You can't prescribe, you know, something, medication for the patient without involving the patient and, you know, asking them. I'm happy that we have representation from the young people today. Most of these discussions we see taking place, no young people is represented. So I thank you for this opportunity. Not only so. Any country with a big population of young people is a
very, very interesting. I'd like to bring in the Honorable Media Chambade, the Minister for Trade and Cooperatives. She is in here. I think next time we will look for the Minister of Education. She should have been here to answer why she is still providing the wrong education for young people. But that's another conversation. I know that people in the Ministry of Education are watching as we continue the conversation. Honorable Media Chambade, thank you so much for joining us. I'll throw you right into the deep end of this conversation. You are in charge of trade in the country. When you go out there and you look at businesses going on, I think one of the things you notice that young people are either unemployed or underemployed. When the lockdown came, when they asked the essential services to stay afloat, the people who mainly remained were not the young people, because the young people on their borders went home. They asked the farmers to continue. The young people have left the farms and come to the city. So then they found themselves all crammed in this very small room, 10 of them. And from what I do know, some of them had never known that the same house houses 10, because they'd never been locked to find out that this house, 10 people live in it, only that it is shifts. So how can we deal with unemployment, and how big is it one of your concerns?
Thank you.
Switch that on.
Thank you very much. Distinguished panelists and all guests here. First of all, I'd like to apologize for becoming late. I'd like to mention a number of areas that we could address in this post-COVID era. What we realized during this period is that most of the youth are informally employed, under the informal sector. And what we realize is that most of the projects or the programs mainly address youth that have been in institutions of higher learning, and there's been a gap that we need to focus on in this area. What is most important is to ensure that we strengthen or consolidate some of the programs of the youth, like the Youth Livelihood Fund. Fortunately, my colleague is here. Programs in the district level focus on skilling first. When I talk about skilling, most people think that these are long-term engagements. But at the moment, they are short-term engagements, especially under management training and advisory council, which is EMTEC, which has been engaged in training youth skills. And youth who are semi-skilled, youth who are not skilled at all. Unfortunately, they're rolled out to rural, to rural areas. They take short-term courses, for example, 2 days or 1 day. Another thing we have to address as government is to find a way of tailoring our education curriculum to the labor market. That has actually worked against us in the past. You find that we are educated, in areas that cannot be, where they cannot be absorbed. Then another issue is focusing on groupings and organizing these youth as groups. For example, let me cite an example of the border borders. We have about 1 million border borders youth in Kampala. And 400,000 of them do not even own these border borders. And I'm sure they're not going to be. Most of the rich or the owners of those borders are not able to claim. So what do we do for them? To organize them in groups, scale them. There's a program here, Youth4Business initiative, that is going to help us facilitate this.
Honorable, Uganda is known for our entrepreneurship abilities. I mean, everybody says we think and create things. We can ask a question of after we have put them in place, how long they stay alive. And what can we do? What can the government do to promote entrepreneurship and make sure that these young entrepreneurs survive? We know that those entrepreneurs we have are thinking border, they're thinking Rolexes, they're thinking things of that nature. I'm not so sure there is a secondary school that teaches how to run a successful Rolex business, even when we know how many people are in Rolexes. I'm not so sure there is any institute that teaches how to run a successful border business, even when there is 1 million of them. So how to support these entrepreneurships? Because what we think when we think about entrepreneurs, we talk funds in big development corporations and say, stock those. These young people are not going to go there.
What has been happening with the government is that most of these organizations that have been training youth, working with families, need to have a locus, whereby we know that if you're training in entrepreneurship, which cluster of youth are you looking at? Are you looking at the kid? Are you looking at the NSP? Are you looking at the semester? That has not been happening because you find UNBS is training MSMEs, UIA is training entrepreneurship, gender is training entrepreneurship, trade is training. But we don't have a focal. What trade has been doing that is engaging our district commission to identify the youth that are unemployed in their respective. So what is important now? We know that. Is it coordinated?
Okay.
Is it focusing on that particular target. So that has been the biggest challenge. So coordination is very important. Organizing the youth, but how do we access that?
Very interesting there, Honorable Maria Chambade. Sometimes I think in terms of guns. She's saying that if training was a gun, we are holding it and firing it in the bush, hoping nobody has taken undercover and somehow by chance we will catch one. But we're talking about a training that is using a sniper gun. One bullet will certainly take out the enemy that we're talking about here. Let's just go to the message here of Ms. Rosa Malango. She is the UN resident coordinator here, and she will share reflections on youth unemployment challenge and what the United Nations in Uganda is doing to support efforts, national efforts we're talking about there. Just watch this.
The United Nations Development Program, in partnership with Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited, will this Tuesday, 7th of July 2020, launch the Youth4Business Innovation Facility.
Today, I want to speak to you about youth, how the United Nations is helping to address some of the challenges that we face. According to UNFPA, today the world has the youngest population it has ever seen to date. Allow me to share some figures. In 2020, the world is estimated to have 7.8 billion people, out of which 41% are under the age of 24. Africa has 1.3 billion people, out of which 60% are under the age of 24. And Uganda, with an estimated population of 45 million people, they're estimated 67% to be under the age of 24. So as the United Nations, what are we doing to try to support the youth? We have involved the youth in the development of our new cooperation framework, guide all of our work in support of the National Development Plan 3 and Uganda's national vision in the next 5 years. I want to thank the youth who are part of these consultations and to tell them that I really look forward to seeing you as part of the implementation as we go. We also incorporated the youth into our UN emergency appeal for COVID and its impact. The first time ever, we have national as well as international NGOs and the Uganda Red Cross as equitable partners in our emergency appeal, and they're part of both the coordination and the execution of the response. Let me thank UNCDF for offering part of facilities and grants as well from both their innovation, SDG innovation, and their digital innovation challenges facilities. And last, but definitely not least, the most recent kid on the block. UNDP and Stanbic Uganda have come together to launch an innovation facility for businesses led by the youth. I am excited about this launch. I look forward to seeing its rollout. And I really encourage every single private sector to think about how can you join us to create other opportunities for the youth in Uganda today. They have solutions, they have ideas, they have suggestions. And it is time that we enable them, equip them, and empower them to be part of the response. Thank you for your attention.
The launch will be live on NBS TV and on all social media platforms from 10:30 a.m. to midday. Powered by United Nations Development Program, UNDP, in partnership with Stanbic Bank.
Well, we've kept that promise about being live, and we're certainly live. My name is Samson Kasumba. Of all things, we know that the Dutch can do. They are thinkers. They reclaim land like nobody does, and haven't they changed football, at least when they did. We all got to know about it. Now they're involved as well with young people. His Excellency Henk Jan Bakker is with us. He's the ambassador of Netherlands in Uganda, and do we all not know that the Dutch are quite involved in developing Africa and African countries such as Uganda, and that forms a significant part of your development strategy in terms of assistance to Uganda. If you may, what are some of the initiatives that you have put in place to enable young entrepreneurs in Uganda to effectively take up opportunities?
Thank you, Samson. 2 years ago, I was the guest of honor at the Nile Educational Training
My motto, don't be a job seeker, be a job creator. And I think that is exactly what we are proposing to talk about. And it brings together two elements. One is education, and the other one is mindset. From the conversation we've had so far, I think we can conclude that there is a difference between education and skilling. A lot of people emerge from the education system. They have knowledge, but they don't have skills. And so, enter the job market, the labor market, there is an additional element of training and skilling of these people. That is nothing new. When I came out of university, I had a handful of knowledge. I joined the department, but I had no idea how to write that. I need to be trained on the job to be able to do that problem. And so, indeed, I think the private sector is very important in skilling people that are entering the job market, are entering the companies in order for them to become productive. So that is one part of it. There's a great example in our own program. It's called SKY, Skilling the Youth in Agriculture. It's run by an Italian organization called ASI. And in the last 2-4 years, they have skilled and trained thousands of people. But it doesn't stop there. It has also helped them to either find a job or to set up their own business. So not only have we trained all these people, but we have helped them find employment as well. The interesting thing is about 6,000 gained employment. Roughly half of them found a job somewhere, and another half started their own business. Interestingly, the ones who started their own business gained twice as much as one who found a job somewhere. So there's an important element there that just don't start training, but help young people to start their own business. That includes, for instance, financial literacy. How do I make a business plan? Young people sometimes about setting up businesses. How much money are you going to spend? How much money are you projected will be coming into your business? You need to think about that before you start. So that is an important element of the conversation. The other one is what I call mindset. We have another element of our program here is it's like one of the smallest programs that we run, but also one of the most visible programs. The whole thing is about changing the mindset of farmers, and especially young farmers. My mantra has always been, when you are a farmer, you are a businessman or a businesswoman. Farming is a business. We need to treat farmers as entrepreneurs. Train them not only in the technical part of the work, or coffee, but most importantly also on the business side. Again, how do you make a business? What is your market? Can you add value to your product? How do you package your product so that it becomes attractive to shops? How do you approach banks or loans, and how do you set up that part? So a lot of what we do, I won't go through the whole rigmarole of what we do, but many of the activities that we do as a bachelor's are focused on those two elements: skilling and mindset change.
Talking about mindset change, I can imagine a situation in which they've called businessmen and Rolex makers and border riders show up. Somebody would say, no, we didn't call you, we meant business people. And I hope we can get to the point where we see a border rider as a businessman, because that's a business, and a Rolex maker as a business person that we can call when we are talking conversations of huge businesses, but that will involve a mindset change. And let's just go to a conversation here by the UNCDF country representative, Dr. Dmitry Pohidayev. He shares a reflection on how the rapid development in digital innovation and digital finance is providing a timely opportunity to address the youth employment challenge in new ways. When we come back, we'll still be talking His Excellency.
The United Nations Development Program, in partnership with Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited, will this Tuesday, 7th of July 2020, launch the Youth4Business Innovation Facility.
I would like to welcome a new development program to establish facility which is designed to unleash the potential of the government to create more jobs for the young people in Uganda and to address the most negative impacts of COVID-19 in the country. Substantively, this is an important initiative because creating meaningful and productive employment for young people in Uganda is extremely important. In Uganda, every year, there are about 300,000 new entrants in the job market. But the formal sector can create jobs only 5 years, meaning that in 5 years, about 1 million Ugandan youths end up outside the formal employment sector, either in the informal sector or jobs. And this emphasizes the criticality of creating good productive jobs for the youth, particularly at this time, when we have to face the consequences of COVID-19. Our experience as UNCDF and our own research shows that small and medium enterprises, and these are the majority of businesses in Uganda, experience a number of issues when it comes to access to finance in particular. So I would like to call on other partners in the financial sector, outside the financial sector, working with the private sector in general, to join this initiative and to help the Ugandan youth and Uganda as a whole to overcome the consequences of COVID-19 and to rebuild.
The launch will be live on NBS TV and on all social media platforms from 10:30 a.m. to midday.
We do have His Excellency Kiemo Kilonzo. He is the Kenyan High Commissioner here in Uganda. He is, besides being in the Foreign Service, a businessman himself with interest in real estate. Much I do know, I'm not so sure how many young people can involve in real estate, looking at how much is involved there. But Kenya does have similar challenges to the one we have. Things we have shared. In terms of East Africanness, our challenges and all. What are some of the lessons that your brothers have learned in supporting job creation and entrepreneurship in Kenya? Case study.
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me start by thanking UNDP and Stanbic, government of Uganda, for organizing this function. The youth are the wealth of any nation. Kenya, we are not. In fact, in Kenya, we define youth as those between the age of 18 to 35. They are recognized in our constitution under Article 260. In Article 55 of the Kenyan Constitution, which was promulgated in 2010, government is obligated to assist the youth by ensuring that they get involved in meaningful economic life. What do we mean by this? As the population of Kenya stands today, which is 47 million Kenyans, The youth alone, between the ages of 18 and 35, constitutes about 35% of the population. If you look at below from 1 year to 5, then you have more than 2/3 of the population. And that is not different in Uganda. Our median age is just around 20 years. I can see in Uganda we are talking about 16. So it's more or less the same. As governments, and when we were discussing here, I had Vivian, the chair of the youth, saying that today she is happy that the youth are being involved in this kind of discussions. All the time, they normally see the elders discussing their issues. I want to start a place and say we are all overuse. Kenya, we formed through the presidential program, again, under our Article 277, we formed a program we call AGOP. AGOP is access to growth opportunities in the procurement of all government tenders. The youth must be given a minimum of 30%. And given that government is the biggest spender, you can imagine 30% minimum in all the institutions must go to the youth. That is one way of trying to bring the youth in economic life. We have also looked at the issue of reorienting the youth. Because for a long time in Kenya, and I'm sure it's also within East Africa, the youth are looked at only the formal education. What are we saying? We're saying that the tertiary institutions have been ignored. You find everyone wants to go to university. If you tell somebody to go to a polytechnic to learn skilling, they feel that, or the society frowns upon them. And people want to do them to start telling our youth that that is where the business is. Every year, 750,000 youth come to the job market. And I can tell you something, only 15% have been employed in the formal employment. Where the rest go? This is where we're talking about entrepreneurship. So we have set aside 2 similar programs to what we are launching today. One, government, the other one, the other banks, the private sector, like KCB, come to what we call a similar program. It's called Tujiajiri. Tujiajiri in Kiswahili means to employ yourself. And they give loans to the tune of 5,000 shillings to 500 shillings. And it is a revolving fund. Now, government on the side, we came up with the Youth Entrepreneurship Development Fund. And we put one of the youth, the CEO. But we also have challenges. And these challenges, Uganda should also learn from us. There are some multiple challenges. Some of them are challenges of governance, integrity, corruption. You can imagine the first one is set up, the CEO had to resign because so these are some of the challenges you find. Issue of management and the board. These are some of the challenges as we move to this facility. You learn from so that you don't
All right, we still have two very powerful ladies yet to speak, but for now, let's talk about the opportunities that are in farming, and we'd like to bring in the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization representative here, Antonio Querido.
The Movement Program, in partnership with Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited, will this Tuesday, 7th of July 2020, launch the Youth4Business Innovation Facility.
Hello everyone, my name is Antonio Querido. I am FAO rep in Uganda. On behalf of FAO, but also as part of UN system in Uganda, I would like to take this opportunity to first congratulate UNDP and Stanbic for this important initiative. Youth for Business Innovation in Entrepreneurship is a facility that can unlock the potential of youth employment here in Uganda. My call to Ugandan youth is that you embrace agriculture as a business. And agriculture sector is by far the sector with the largest potential in Uganda. Therefore, in agriculture, definitely you can realize your potential as Ugandan youth. Uganda is a youthful nation. More than 30% of its population under the age of 30. We see that agriculture is the major source of livelihood, but also a major source of foreign exchange for Uganda. FAO, together with my youth, we do have a yearly program that will look for the youth champion in Uganda. The first year we have an application of over 500 applicants. We're able to identify 50, later came up with the 25 finalists. This was an opportunity to work with them, skill them in terms of business management, and create the capacity they need to really for their, to boost their business. I take this opportunity also to invite Stanbic and UNDP to be part of this initiative, MAIF and FAO, for us to scale up this program and ensure that we reach out more youth and show them that in agriculture, you do have an opportunity, and not only in the production, but also in processing, in transporting, in marketing, in the entire value chain of agriculture. There is an opportunity for us to solve the challenges of unemployment, youth unemployment.
The launch will be live on NBS TV and on all social media platforms.
Thank you very much. One of the biggest shocks of my life when I landed in the UK is I went to work at a cleaning job, and in a conversation during the break, a lady that was doing very well because she pulled it in a very good car, she bought her own house, was paying her mortgage right. She asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm studying. She asked, what are you studying? I said, I'm studying theology. What's that? Then I explained. So what exactly is that? I said, I'm doing a master's. She said, what is a master's degree? I said, it's what comes after a bachelor's degree. She said, what's that? I was shocked that somebody in the UK did not know what a master's degree was. Neither did they know what a degree was. So I asked her, what did you study? She said, I'm NVQ3. That's their National Vocational Qualification. Widely studied in the UK. They don't even care about degrees. It's after they get into their 60s or 70s. When they want to study something, then they go to the university and study history, when they can pay for themselves. So where did we get this thing? That if Samson says, I'm from a technical college, you're gonna ask you, you're brilliant, man. How come you don't have a degree? So it's a completely different way of thinking about it. We patronize vocational education. Those who brought education raise up vocational education because it drives economies. That's a side conversation. Let me come to Anjuko here. I have not seen anyone sanitize more times in an hour than I have seen Anne do it. You've taken the prize for that, I was noting. But Anne, away from the lighters, our population is certainly going to double, most probably will double in the next not so long, especially if we're talking about the unemployed population. And one of the biggest challenges is access to funds. Young people would rather go for money lender or to mortgage their bike or land title because they are that banks say it's easy to get money. Those who get it say it is hard. We don't know who is lying. So how can young people readily and easily access finances? And I've got to bring in that we're also talking about a country where there are integrity issues and where, again, unlike other places, the national ID and things haven't really tied in together, because like in the UK, if you borrow money, you can run away. I'm not so sure whether we are there in Uganda. Come into this conversation.
So thank you very much. Good morning, everybody.
You want to turn on the mic?
Which one?
We give you two. You can choose.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I would like to talk to you so they can hear me. So I'm going to move my mic over here. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, the whole UN family, thank you so very much for making the time to be here with us. So the question that you asked about access to finance is a very layered question. It has reasons and reasons for that. In fact, I read a sentence that gave me cause for pause when someone said that a youth in Uganda especially would rather go to a dental appointment than go to a bank, which is very unfortunate. I mean, if you can, you know, when the dentist lays out all the machines and the things, you're thinking all of them, it's going to be painful. So if you prefer that to a bank, then clearly we're getting something wrong, which is why, as a bank, we have taken it from the top. And allow me to digress, but I'll come back to a response to it. So you've taken it from the beginning to say, why are we here as an institution, as Stanbic Bank? Why do we exist? And we are very clear about our purpose here. Uganda is our home, we drive our growth. That is the beginning of everything we do and what we do. Which is why when people wonder, but shouldn't you be worrying about the TILs and cash in transit? Why are you there? I'm very clear about why I stand with the UNDP, why we stand with the private sector, because we're clear on what we want to do. And because Uganda is our home and we want to drive our growth, it is impossible for Stanbic Bank to grow if the youth in Uganda do grow. They are 78% of our population. If we're not catering to them, we are missing the trick. That's number one. That's why you see us here, to be part of it. But we've also learned, as was previously expressed, and the ministers will both tell you, that throwing money at a problem is not going to solve the problem. You have to take it from the root. That's why you see we have chosen very clear priorities. Our first priority is education in this country. And those of you who were with us last week, you saw we launched our national education platform, because we understand that what the government provides in the school is not enough. But it's good and it's wonderful and it looks far better than other places. So we're partnering with the government, and you've seen our national secondary school competitions, that's that. To say, what does the government provide and how can we augment that? As a direct result of our program, students in the secondary education are being exposed to entrepreneurship skills, right? So that, and we have those, but every year we do at least 100. We start with 100,000, and the finalists make, even if you're in the top 100, you're a finalist. Yeah, and that those people, we then fund their ideas, and they have businesses in schools. So that as a child, even as you grow up, the idea of running a successful enterprise is not foreign, it's not a textbook. It is an idea you have experience. And we've seen them come up with amazing programs, solving for the community problems in there. So that's number one, we're working on education because that's where it starts. Then we get into the second level, which is where we are, the youth. Now that you've left school, what can you do? And how can you do it? We know that if we lend you money, which we would like to, because we're in the business of lending money, it's not going to be enough if we haven't empowered you, if we haven't trained you. The good ambassador talks about a business. the simplest of things to say, just commit to paper what you want to do. Yes, I want to sell Rolex. How many will you sell? How much is the unga flour? How much is the charcoal? Can you write it down? Because it is an enterprise and you have to do that. So we have combined a series of solutions to be able to answer that, which is why we went ahead and opened our business incubator. And in this business incubator program, we take young entrepreneurs and give them skills and train them. How do you run a business? How do you compete? How do you write a formal letter? How do you go to market? How do you brand? And as we go along with this program, it keeps changing. Because before we would call them in a classroom like this and train them. Say, you can do this, you can do that, but it was never practical. We now said, okay, fine, we'll do the training in the class, but we'll also come to your organization. And we will work with you as an incubator over a period of time that you're ready. And now that we have, because then that's sort of a second level, we realize the training, but now we've trained you, but you don't have the funding. You haven't been funded. So that is the third level of this program. It's okay, fine. Once we've taken you through an incubator program, we can then lend you money. And because of the way we work, so which are the other partners we can partner with? And LC, one of UNDP, to say, can we partner with the UNDP to provide a grant to start you off? We train you with the grant, and once you're there, we can lend you financial. We can do a financial loan. And therefore, the visit is not like a visit to the dentist. But this is a partnership journey that we are walking. And for all the youth that are listening to us, Rome was not built in a day. Your business will not be built in a day. You have to be patient. You have to be willing to do the work to get to the next level. But as a bank, we're standing to say, we're here and we're going to be here for a long time. So how do we work with the government, with other development partners to rise up to the occasion and answer the issues that they're facing?
Thank you very much. And anytime you talk, Dr. Maxime Onato, you're certainly talking women and involving women and empowering women, closing the gender gap, and making sure that we are in tune with Agenda 2030. Let's bring in Dr. Maxime.
Program partnership with Starbuck Bank Uganda Limited will this Tuesday, 7th of July 2020, launch the Youth4Business Innovation Facility.
My name is Maxime. I'm women in Uganda. I want to start by celebrating the partnership between UNDP, UN Women, and other agencies to support entrepreneurship, and particularly women entrepreneurship in Uganda. We've gone a long way in supporting folks that are in business to fight COVID pandemic and other difficulties. We know that among business people in Uganda, women are particularly strong. From the lady roasting groundnuts or corn by the roadside to the other lady making Pepsi in Uganda, we have a long range of women keeping this country together in terms of economic life. However, they have a lot of difficulties that we've been supporting governments to address. And one of these difficulties is financing. And financing is not just funding, it's not just grants, it's not just a loan from a bank. It's the package that the United Nations is supporting the Ministry of Finance and government to put in place to address the difficulties that women have to put together resources that they need to do business in Uganda. And in that respect, we want to also call on the private sector to come and help. And that's why this partnership between the UN and Stanbic is particularly important. We want to take the opportunity to call other businesses, other private sector enterprises to join this initiative to provide women with the resources that they need. When we talk about innovation, we usually look at technology. We usually look at even marketing. But now we are bringing innovation in the sector of financing so that one of the most important bottlenecks that businesses face in Uganda can be addressed. And at this juncture, I want to also recognize the effort made by government. Government has provided an environment that helps businesses to thrive. And that comes from the policies that are in place, the financial mechanisms that are public, that we are now supporting with the private side. And I want to, thank government for that leadership. My other message has to do with the women themselves. People can open doors for you, but they will not push you in. And they will not keep also the door open forever. So I want to send out a message to businesses that are owned by women to now take the opportunity and engage into this door that is open. How do we take that opportunity? Self-organization, getting out to get the information that is required, meeting the criteria that the system is putting in place for you to be able to have access to the mechanism. So at that level, what UN Women is doing in terms of accompanying women in business will be very, very important. We are talking about organizations like organizations of business women to support other women that might not have all of the necessary mechanisms in their mind. So at that level, I want to call on all of the women in business to come together with the UN, to come together with the government in order to make the contribution of women in the national economy more visible. Because women have been confined in the informal sector, women have been confined in the rural sector, and we want to try to bring them to the formal economy, which will have a direct impact on the GDP of this country. And that's how we fight poverty, that's how we fight exclusion.
The launch will be live on NBS TV.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maxime Minato. If you may, the ladies' man, not what you're thinking about. I'm saying that he is the man in charge of UN Women here in Uganda. This man can mean anything and everything. Now, if passion was an African woman, it would be in flesh and blood of Lady Elsie Atafa. She is the resident representative of UNDP here in Uganda. Elsie, thank you so much for bringing us together. Now, youth in Uganda are certainly part of the youngest population in the world, which is an enormous potential. I prefer to see things very positively. But if this group were left untapped, then it could turn out as a major development challenge. Of course, as we all do know, that youth employment and empowerment is one of the 6 strategic impact areas of the renewed UNDP strategic offer for this continent here, Africa. So if I may, what is UNDP planning to do, doing as well, to turn the boat into a driving force for economic and social entrepreneurship growth? I'm not French, I'll never get that word right.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. And I just want to use the opportunity to thank the Honorable Ministers, Honorable Chandale, and Honorable Nachiwala, Excellencies Ilonizu and Han Baker. Certainly our partner on this, Anjuko, who has been extremely supportive and a visionary leader, very inspired by her, and our destinies have been trying to get on this initiative. And thank you very much, Lillian, and also our representative from the PSSE. But let me just try to put things in context because I also trained as a teacher. From a development point of view, we have already heard that there are 1.8 billion young people in the world. Okay, most of these are in developing countries. 420 million of these are in Africa. And it's going to be double by 2050, which means by 2050, we're going to have about 840 million young people. And then when you come back again to the African context, you do have Uganda as the second youngest population after Niger. What does it actually mean? From a development point of view, when we talk about jobs, it's not just about livelihoods. You're talking about being able to transform the country in a fundamental way, a structural way. The socio-economic development of the country then is hinged and precipitated on how you empower youth moving forward. Now, what we've also learned from COVID is that COVID, yes, has been a challenge, but it's also presented opportunities for us in terms of business difference. So coming back to exactly what is UNDP doing, and I just want to frame it within the context of what the UN also is doing, in the fact that when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and when we talk about leaving no one behind, who are we talking about? When we talk about the principles of inclusivity and universality, what do we mean? It means people like young people that don't have to leave behind. So what we do as
as UNDP as a development agency, just like we are doing today, is to create the platform for conversations like this, to connect the dots, to bring the private sector, to bring the public sector, to bring the businesses together to have safe conversations, so that we can integrate some of these things into our national development processes. So I'm just looking at it more at a strategic level, what UNDP does. One of the things we've also been doing is looking at the NDP field, because that provides you the entry point of how you can engage in national development. And so the consultations around and making sure that you're integrated and mainstream issues around you into the 18 programs become very key. And most importantly, working with the National Planning Authority, Ministry of Finance and others to see how then you transition the National Development Plan into something much more tangible that supports the needs. So the sort of integrator role that UNDP plays, creating that platform is something that we are doing. And I'm glad that we are doing that today. We're going to talk about it a bit more in the facility. The second thing that we are doing is really looking at the issue around innovation. Because we talk about innovation, but what does it mean? We have established here in Uganda, in fact, 90 countries in the world, what we call an accelerator lab. What does a lab do? What the lab does is that it helps us to reimagine development in the 21st century. In other words, when you graduate from a career from today, for example, most likely artificial intelligence has taken over your job. So how do you stay ahead of the curve in that sense? So what we are doing here is to try to look at frontier challenges, including youth. And when you take the COVID example, for example, what we did with Jumia, UNDP introduced an app that for the first time is connecting consumers to markets. Nobody had thought about that. Because the market women were selling their tomatoes, their peppers, their onions. We just bought them by, but nobody had connected to say you can actually stay in the comfort of your house and be able to buy your pepper from Nakawa or Bugolobi and others. And that's what we have tried to do, using innovation to connect the youth. And this has created quite a very fundamental with employment for young people in the logistics, in transport, in the farming, looking at all the way back the farm. We are looking at about 3,000 farmers now who are connected to the mine. So that's part of innovation. The third thing is looking at incentives. I'm talking about 4 I's now. I've talked about integrator role, I've talked about innovation, I'm talking about incentive. Why would we give, for example, somebody who comes to Uganda tax holidays and not the young people of Uganda? So one of the things we're doing is like we as a UN family have been looking at a socioeconomic assessment in terms of the impact of COVID. And in that, we are proposing economic packages, stimuli, things that will help vulnerable groups, especially young people, to be able to bounce back. But also importantly, looking at the future of development, we can create the incentives, physical incentives, financial incentives, and others for the young people to be able to engage. And then finally, the fourth thing we have been doing is in the area of investment. We are investing in partnerships. Today is with Stanbic, and I think this is very exciting for us. But we've been partnering with others as well. I mean, for example, the Tony Elubelu Foundation, we have worked with young people from Uganda to benefit from that foundation. We are working with the Ministry of Gender, for example, and the graduate volunteer scheme. We heard the graduates are coming out, but they're not skilled. We are pairing them with institutions where they can get skills. They are there for a year, and hopefully, once they have employability skills, they'll be able to find jobs. We are working in the agricultural sector. Our colleague Antonio talked about agriculture as a business, and we are working with the Songhai model in Kapingisa, something that is quite interesting, looking at an integrated approach to agriculture and trying to see how that can be upskilled. Tourism is a big thing for us, and to COVID, we had a lot of young people in the tourism sector, not only in the hotel business, but also, I mean, the creative industry around it. So, I mean, these are things that we have been doing. And importantly for today, we are very excited about this partnership with Stanbic, where we are looking at, launching this Youth4Business facility. Is transformational, it's a game changer, it has never happened. And we do hope that with the instruments that we are going to be looking at within the context for the Youth4Business facility, we'll be able to empower young people, create opportunities for them, financing opportunities, and packages that allow them to flourish because they are the assets of the country and they are the future of the country.
Thank you very much, Lady Elsie there. We running short on time. It's about 7 minutes to the top of the hour, and we've got about 30 minutes to close up and also have the launch. And let me come to those who understand the business of time. Right, it has been said that 2 minutes is a short time on television until it's given to your political opponent to talk about you. Then it becomes a whole lot of time. So, Honorable Natural, I'll give you a whole 2 minutes for your closing remarks, and then I'll give the same to Honorable Media Chambade. Then the rest will have a minute 59.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kasoba and the audience there, I would like us to really make the youth understand that it's not a piece of cake. I don't like us to lie to the young people or to promise them anything. Business means planning, the first case. It means saving. It means capital, provision of capital. And it means livelihood. Me coming out of the home to do something for a day and you earn it for yourself. And you don't even look after your home. You do not even save. It doesn't translate into business. Business means mindset change, knowing that you can be patient and knowing that you cannot earn today or tomorrow. Business means skills that you do have. It also means governance, because we have given the youth the opportunity to lead right from the village level. But even when they lead, they think it's not business enough. Even when they're in parliament, they think it's not business enough. They still cry out to even their voters that they are not earning. And business means integrity. You're doing business and you're holding people's lives. If you're riding a boda and you're ferrying 5 people, 3 people on a boda at a time, if it crashes, it means life for the people. Then it means security to others. It means democracy to others. So Uganda is leading a private sector-led economy. Just saying government to Yambe that is cheap. It means do it for yourself and take into account these 7 things that I'm talking about. So government in itself has provided what I think has been the best in the history of Uganda. Because just next week, I think, we are giving out equipments, 1,000 equipments to young people. And even this is not good enough. So we are tasking them to say these are capital equipment. So say you're getting a maize meal. How many youth will you employ? And how ready are you? Because tomorrow you'll not be a young person, you'll be the the senior youth. And then you will forget that you will forget that we helped you. So today we are helping the young people, and every day there are people graduating from the youth bracket. So when you look at them, you think they were not helped by the time they were young people. So it is trickling all over. So who is the youth and who is not a young person? But all in all, it is not cast in stone. We have to believe that Coca-Cola, for example, if it is hard hit by water and people are not drinking the sugar anymore in the sodas, then shift and make water. So to the young people out there, if you're hard hit by the COVID, how ready are you to just tilt a little bit your business so that you can still be in business? Crying out might not help us, but as the youth docket, we are working around the clock to see that even when the hardest of times come, the president and the government will be there to help you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nachwara Chiyimji, Minister there. Honorable Media Chambade, when we talk about young people, I'm also giving you 2 minutes. I don't know whether that was 2. I think it sounded like a minute 58. Honorable Media Chambade, we're talking about your sons and daughters, and tomorrow your grandchildren. What is government, in a sense, doing to bless facility for youth entrepreneurship? In your closing remarks, if you could squeeze that in as well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to point out that the youth in Uganda have actually struggled. And I'm proud to announce that in the agriculture sector, there are about 55% of the youth who are engaged in a number of projects or programs. And in trade, they're about 15%. In ICT, they've come up with a lot of innovations. But what is government doing? For example, in agriculture, NADS is giving them seeds, it's giving them machinery, small-scale equipment. And in ICT, and Ministry of Science and Technology, it's giving them a fund to support their innovations. And then when you look at URI, Uganda Industrial Research Institute, it has it incubates some of the projects they have started or they have embarked on. But now it's also producing equipment that will be given out. Ministry of Trade also has a program, Rural Industrial Development Project, which gives out machinery. But now the issue of mindset is key, because sometimes when they get this machinery, they think it's free. When they get this machinery, they think when it gets spoiled, government has to come in.
They call it eating the national cake.
Eating the national cake, or the vote.
Yeah. We voted, decided.
Yes, we voted.
But whilst we still go on, he suggested an example they're doing there, the 30% in terms of contracts. Is that too ridiculous an idea for us to take on here?
No, we're going to start with a program called in Uganda. We're rolling up the money in this new financial year, whereby we cluster these groups according to their occupation, areas of occupation. So if I'm in the 7, so in the district, all us young people or saloon operators are given 30 million as a revolving fund. And that revolving fund is you borrow and return and you continue investing in your business. So we have already started organizing them under the RRTCs. And they're soon disbursing money. We passed it in the budget. I'd like to state that as we discuss these issues, we need to look at the challenge of around rural-urban migration, because that is one of the areas that has stunted the youth from progressing or doing business. We need to find ways of attracting them to stay in their areas or in their districts so that they can benefit from these programs, because we push these programs right down there. Another area we should look at, accessible and affordable credit. As I listened into Stanley, I say, Eureka, I think there's going to be a change. But when you look at the documentation, we are applying for a loan or something, I hope they found a way of simplifying the process.
There's also what they call the small print. The most important information in the bank is very fine print for some reason.
So that is another area that we need to think about. Looking at this partnership, UNDP and Stanley, and members of the private sector and government through youth, we're going to go a long way in addressing the youth challenges, because now we are cognizant of the issues. But the biggest concern is, how do we access our target group?
Okay.
How? I think that should be the key issue. How do we access that? We are here seated in this hotel, but the target group is down there. He has no TV. Sometimes he has no radio. How do we access that target group? Because even at this time, he's working somewhere. He has no time to sit on this TV and watch us. My personal power, which I always say, hey, they haven't seen me, and yet I'm here on TV. But this person is not able to access this TV. So we need to scratch our heads and think about that target group. How do we access? I want to thank UNDP.
In conclusion.
In conclusion, Nancy is very passionate about development, very passionate about the youth, very passionate about the vulnerable groups. I have worked with her, closely with her. I remember she's the one who started this topic. How are you going to manage COVID? And all of us, I know we went there in that forum. COVID had just started. We didn't even know what COVID was. We didn't even know what was expected of COVID. We didn't know the lockdown was coming. But she started that discussion. And it has helped us in government. It has helped me in my sector. You have noticed we've been very active during all this period. I want to and I'm very proud to see that you have tapped into it. Madam Juko, sorry to call you madam. But she has also been very passionate. But as soon as she came into this family, you know, the attitude towards the financial sector changed. Because we think of these institutions, financial institutions, as rigid, as inaccessible, and that, come on. Your Excellency, I'm proud to do the private sector foundation. Never let that pass. You've been very passionate about the boundary groups. And I really want to thank you. I've been following you and I've noted with concern. Our daughter, Lillian, thank you so much for the role. My sister is also a youth, very passionate about the youth. Yes, very passionate, and I'm pledged to support you. I thank you all. Yes, Mr. MC, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I love your program.
Well, thank you very much, Kalamko. Lady Amelia Chambade, thank you very, very much. And we're talking about youth and the challenges there. Something came to my mind here. I don't know what would happen if, for instance, we said that it is national policy that after senior 6, you all go for vocational institution training for 2 years. Then if you choose, you can continue over to university. I don't know, I'm just thinking widely out there. Gideon, do you call yourself Gideon? What's your preference? Gideon. Gigi. we can say Gigi. Gideon. Gideon, from private sector, your concluding thoughts on how important this is going to be a game changer. Minute 59.
I'm really very happy.
You want to turn that on? Yes.
I really want to appreciate the Stanley and UNDP for really doing together this morning. I think the right thing is on the wall. If we don't invest in young people today, we don't. I think that goes without saying. But we have been an entrepreneurial company for so long time. Business is startup, and we have that enthusiasm to start business. But again, the mortality is and that points to one thing. You start a business, no one is there to manage it. There is no entrepreneurship in this marketing. All these skills are nowhere. We need to invest a lot. When business is startup, we must invest more in managerial skills, the training, and what I say, training and retraining, entrepreneurship, innovation, and so on. Businesses are established and creating jobs. We have been told that private sector are the job creators. And I want to suggest that 50% of this task goes to the person looking for the job. So 50% of the job creators are the people that are looking for these jobs. Why? Because if you invest more in attaining that job without sustaining your presence in that job, you lose it. And many young people are losing these jobs because they are not committed, they don't have the self-pride, they are not creative, there is no innovation with them, they lack ethics, the style, the mode of work, and so on and so forth. And we need to be talking to them to be able to understand that business is beyond the papers that they come to. So these are the soft skills that we start with. So we need to do a lot in terms of empowering them, in terms of helping them to perfect in whatever job they start up, in whatever job they join as an employee, and whether it's going to be sustained, largely remains and depends on the person that you
I hope you will walk the talk, because I don't see why you are talking empowering young people and you go to a salon of somebody aged yourself when there are young people who can cut your hair. And I will be watching with our cameras to see where you get your salon services, because there are young people who can do the neat pencil, who can do all this good natural hair. Why don't we start by just employing young people? At least I employ young people with my salon services. My daughter do it, although it is much cheaper than elsewhere. I do put something in their piggy banks to teach them to work. Lillian, do you get yours from somebody your age or somebody older? In your concluding remarks.
Definitely, I get it from.
Is your salon services managed by somebody 48?
Not at all.
Okay.
But a very young lady, about I think 24 years.
Fantastic. So you walk the talk.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Your concluding remarks.
Well, I would like to thank all the panelists and the partners out there for loving the young people. And I also want to thank the efforts which has been put in place. Indeed, as the chairperson of the National Youth Council, I would like to say thank you on behalf of the youth of Uganda. And as young people, I want to say that the opportunities are out there. It is very clear that we do not have enough jobs and we may never have enough jobs. Public sector can hardly employ a number, but there are quite a number of opportunities in the entrepreneurship world. And when I heard Canby clearly stipulating all this agenda they have, I think if we work on the bureaucracies, we should be able to support quite a number of young people. And it's my prayer that governments, private sector, support partners have a kind of green approach to the issue of supporting the young people. If we are training, then we have marketing, then we have value addition, then we have skills-based, kind of multi-training. I think that is really good. But a lot has to be done by the young people themselves. We can only talk, the money can be put in place. We have done quite a number of funding through government, but I can tell you the number of challenges we experience even in the youth level program. So that means it's you to get yourself out of poverty. We can only do the talking, but we don't get up today and say, I will do this differently, be innovative and do it, to my best. We may not have to, may not achieve what we intend. And I also want to plead with the government that I think it's time we have the minimum wage for the young people.
So by government, meaning you're on the side.
Exactly. I'm speaking on behalf of young people and we have partners.
Because the young people watching will be saying, when the presidential advisor pleads to government.
I am doing this because it's quite today.
So you mean the executive?
Yes, the executive, the civil society, whoever is concerned with the young people. Today we are battling with the effect of COVID. We don't have job security for the young people. They don't have what they call contracts. They are employed today, they can be fired tomorrow. There is no minimum wage. Someone is totally underemployed. If you ask the young people on the street, because of desperation, they will tell you, I can do anything. What can you do? What kind of job can we give you? Anything, because of the desperation. But I think you will have at least minimum wage put in place. We will be able to achieve some kind of protection for the young people. And the contracts, I was very happy with the Kenyan ambassador. Let's have some 30% request for the young people. They have the capacity, they have the ability to do these contracts. It is in paper, but practically it's not working. So I want to implore the young people to, believe that there's some positivity. I am not one person who will talk about pessimism. The numerical strength we have when channeled towards developmental issues, it can be a very great asset for the country. So we would like us to be considered as a priority during budgeting process. Thank you.
Just before I let you go, the nation's visionary and one of the wisest men in this nation has suggested, at least in passing, that if you bring minimum wage, you're going to drive away investors that take us a lot of time to bring it here. What's your response to such a view?
I think that's what the BN, because has worked in very many countries. I think this is more of protection for the young people. We also have very many local investors in this country who have capacity to employ quite a number of young people. And if we do that, I think that will also address issues of young people boarding planes, going out of the country, looking for employment outside the country because of the fear of less pay, with the fear of having, no protection at work.
Okay, very interesting. When I was posing that question, two members of the panel prayed for you because they realized the nature of waters in which you are going to sail. I will not mention any names, but there were two members of the panel that started away praying for you. But I think you've done very well in the answer. I don't know whether they want me also to pose the same question their direction. Maybe I should. I will come to you, Your Excellency, Henk Jan Bakker. If you may, how can youth enterprises better prepare to take advantage of trade opportunities that exist with business establishments in the Netherlands and the European Union here?
First of all, let me say that I learned a new term here today, senior youth. I'm going to refer to myself as a senior youth for the rest of my day.
Yes, that's beginning 45 to around 65, senior youth.
Exactly. I wanted to pick up actually on something that the Honourable Minister said about the government giving things away. Anything that's free has no value.
So that again,
anything that is free has no value. And I think you should be, as a government, very careful with giving things to people, to groups. I see it happening a lot. And exactly the examples that you gave earlier about the tractor that is given to a certain group of farmers and it breaks down and nobody has or takes the responsibility to take care of it, to maintain it. And so I see it quite a lot in Operation Wealth Creation in other areas, and I think it is the wrong strategy. I think business people and farmers are happy to pay a certain amount of money for quality is good. And I think that is a very important function to take away. That also goes for foreign investors. Elsie mentioned tax holidays. If you ask a Dutch entrepreneur that comes to Uganda, would you like a tax holiday? Of course he will say, or she will say, yes, thank you very much. If you pursue the question a little bit more, what is important as an investor in this country? It is not the tax holiday. It is stability and predictability. Taxes in the business environment, in how the judicial system operates, etc., etc. And the tax holiday is the byproduct. So as an ambassador, I always say tax holidays are not so much in favor of them. It also runs the risk of companies coming here for 5 or 10 years, and then when the tax holiday is over, they will go somewhere else where they can get another tax. So think about that when you pursue your policies in that sense. Now, when it comes to what you need to do to enter the markets, I always say that's a high step, but you can attain it. But let's try, as a young entrepreneur, let's try to cater for the German market first, then try the EAC, and then if you're successful in that area, then try to enter Europe, America, wherever you want to products or services. Because it is a long way away. Let's focus on that. One remark on that to Stanley, we tend to focus very much on startups, on starting entrepreneurs. What we find is that those who have taken the first step successfully and are now looking for finance to take the next step, to go from 5 or 10 employees to maybe 50 or 100, that those entrepreneurs find it very difficult to find loans and to find financial services. So don't forget that group. It's a very important group. It's actually the backbone of your economy is that group, that size of companies that is not small, that is not very, very big and multinational, but it is in between. So that's very important.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Henk Jan Bakker. And going into the campaign season, I thought that was candid talk. Free things have no value, but when they're asking for them, and they're saying our vote is here, resisting the temptation, I can tell you, is another one, but I thought that that's very honest. Sometimes, to be honest, I feel very envious and jealous that all the way to where I am. And to be honest, I think about 20 years ago, I lived in a house without a roof for 2 weeks, yes, before we put on some papyrus and plastic sheets on there. And I don't remember from that to where I am that I've been thrown free money. So sometimes I look at somebody else being given free money. 6 months later, I ask, where is it? There. Has free money ever produced entrepreneurs anywhere in the world? It's a question. I'm living there. And most often than not, the people who give it are where they are, not on the auspices of free money themselves. So why are they gambling on what never met them themselves, that has no history of success? We philosophers like to leave questions that those after us will answer. We never have the answers. Ours is to ask and then leave the answering to the rest. Your Excellency, Kilonzo, let me come to you, regional blocks and trading regionally, because if you're saying you're offering 30% to the Kenyans, the last time I checked, we were related to the Kenyans. Can't we also come as brothers and young people and access the 30%, or you in Kenya don't think East African community?
Thank you. That's a very, very good question. I must start saying to the youth, if you allow me to say this, is that there is no free lunch. The youth must roll their sleeves and be ready to work. Any other party is just going to be complementing the effort of the youth. Uganda and Kenya enjoys the best, one of the best bilateral relationship ever. If there was a scale to 1 to 10, it would be 10-10. Kenya and Uganda, we are truly sister countries. And therefore, within the East African community, under YAMA, which is the parliament of the East Africa, there is already a team which sits down under what they call Cisco. Cisco is an organization which involves artisans. A majority of artisans are young people.
The Jokalis.
The Jokalis, they are called Jokalis or Buvukas. And they revolve around the East African cities. They are in Kampala this year, next year they are in Dar es Salaam. We want to encourage our youth to get involved in these big markets. Yeah, they should not restrict themselves. Like I said, there is nobody who is going to come here from Kenya and invite the Ugandan youth. The Ugandan youth must sit down, come up with programs, yeah, which are competitive within the region, and the market is there for them. East Africa countries have come up with treaties which allow free movement of goods, people, and services. So I want to encourage the youth to explore that big market. To Lillian, you are spot on. I must commend you for your bravery on behalf of the youth. In Kenya, there is a minimum wage. The minimum wage in Kenya is $150. Please, let not our youth be misused. Yeah? Let the government, let parliament enact laws to ensure that there is a minimum wage. Sometimes it is disheartening when you hear that locals were being paid by a foreigner who was paying them peanuts. So we cannot accept that as governments. It doesn't matter how good that investor is. The locals must be respected, and those locals are the youth. So I want to say that that issue of the minimum wage. We have done it in Kenya. It's also an example where we can look at. Then members of parliament, because we are members of parliament. In Kenya, we have that's 30%. Also goes cascades down to the constituency fund, because we have the constituency development fund.
Yes.
In that development fund, all the projects, if they are footbridges, they are roads, because those ones don't need the big skills, they are given to the youth. Let us empower the youth. They are our future. I want to thank Elsie. Elsie has been to Kenya before coming here, and you can see that the passion she has, the passion she has is going to take UNDP far. I want to thank you and also these are Kenyans. And they are also getting experience from other markets. Let us use that experience to lift the youth of the planet. Thank you for this invitation, and to all colleagues, panelists. Have a blessed day.
Okay, asante sana Mheshimiwa, and certainly a pleasure there. You can always trust Kenyans. When anything is good, we own it. And Elsie, if we may, we have heard a lot about the challenges that young people face in embarking on the entrepreneurship journey. I think we can't be debating that now. What is Youth4Business Innovation and Entrepreneurship Facility, and what and how does all these become an instrument to comprehensively address the challenges that we have highlighted, if briefness was ever going to be something?
Well, I think this is coming at a very historic time, and I just want to build on all the other things that have been said, that exactly what we are trying to achieve with this facility. There are three things that we are trying to achieve with this facility. First, we're going to we're establishing an innovative challenge fund and growth accelerator. Now, what does it mean? We're not going to give free money in that sense. I just wanted to build on what His Excellency said. We're going to be looking at matching grants, for example, because that's where people can be serious about the business. We're going to be looking at giving youth that would pass in terms of the criteria, at least up to about $40,000 for the grants. But also importantly, we heard that many SMEs don't live up to 3 years and then they die. What can you do? So we are looking at a growth accelerator package where we are looking at corporate governance, we are looking at enterprise development, business development. So that's one instrument that we're going to use. I just wanted to highlight also one of the things we're going to do under the innovative challenge is looking at performance-based payments. In other words, we only give you ex post when you have delivered results. So there are going to be different ways of encouraging people to be serious about the business. The second one is the Enterprise Challenge Fund. Ambassador Heng talked about the fact that what about those who have been in business for 2 years? I mean, how can you support them? Exactly what we're going to do. And those are going to be supported by Stanbic in terms of grooming them, providing financing, soft loans below the market rate, and to encourage that those businesses don't die. So exactly one of the things that we're going to be doing. The third thing that we're looking at under this sort of facility is innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem platform. We need to bring the youth together under a platform. Now, if you are selling tomatoes, for example, and somebody is processing tomatoes, for example, how would you connect? And the platform is able to bring the youth together, whether through a circle, whether through knowledge management. That's something that we're going to be doing. So in essence, the couple of principles that we'll be looking at, scalability is going to be important. Job creation, so when you get the facility or the grant or loan, you should also be able to create employment. The third thing that we're going to be looking at, also leave no one behind. You should also look at it from the lens of how do I employ the vulnerable groups. And finally, we want to also look at the principle of green growth and economy. You don't want a youth business that will destroy the forest to create something else, or degrade the wetland to create something else. So that's going to be important in terms of sustainability. So this is what we are looking at in terms of the facility. And I think it's coming at a very right time when Africa itself is going through an extraordinary time. We heard about market access. Honorable Minister, you've been leading the conversations around the African Free Trade Continental Area Agreement. People in Ghana, for example, don't know that Ugandans produce milk or coffee or tea. I have friends in Accra, when they take Kenyan tea, they're asking, where is this coming from? Because they're used to the lectins and the techniques. How do we connect these countries, the youth, so that someone who sits in Ghana, Nigeria, or some other place will be able to access the market here and vice versa? So I think this is coming at a historic time in the history of the continent, and we can be able to leverage, in many ways, this facility to be able to connect people and to do something that is transformational and will support the development of the region, and importantly, the development of Uganda, particularly during the NDP 3 time and in support of the Vision 2040.
Very interesting. Still thinking strange ideas here. In a country that has a National Bureau of Standards, I was thinking at the time when government was spending some interesting amount of money on masks that if government had told young people to make masks, just said, these are the kind of masks we want. You make them, ship them over to the National Bureau of Standards. Once they pass them, we know the number, we pay you. But again, it went to the big one, who made masks. And when I looked at them, I was like, young people could have done this. But again, this is me outside government. Maybe when you get to government, it's a whole, thinking, getting young people. Yeah, you can. The Minister of Trade, yes.
It was killing me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I intended to tickle you.
No, it didn't go to the big ones because they even allowed micro and medium enterprises to also supply. And in the beginning, they were quite strict and restricting these masks only to a few selected ones. But now they've allowed people to wear whatever mask. But what they've come out with specifications, and they've allowed people, other units, to make their masks and sell to the public.
I mean, selling to government, because government is the biggest purchaser. Some young people in Kale were there making masks.
Yes.
What's so difficult about opening up and say, these are the instructions? Once you make your masks, young people, bring them to the National Bureau of Standards. It satisfies them. We know the number. We pay you. In hindsight, could that have been a good one?
Well, that is
good way to approach it, or something to think about.
That is something that we're going to roll out. Of course, there were challenges with UNBS that they didn't have sufficient machinery and equipment to test the exact masks that should be used. But they brought in machinery, and they're going to allow people to sell that, because even the few selected ones cannot satisfy the market, the local market. The government has to give out free masks.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Amelia Chambali, clarifying there. Let's come to you, Anne. In terms of your involvement as a bank, what will be your role in the Youth4Business Innovation Entrepreneurship Facility? I hope you'll also talk about the small print. You said that was unfair when we raised it. You call it fine print in banking.
I most certainly will. But before I do that, I think I want to take it from the top yet again as to why we do what we do and why we're here, and why it's important for us to be deliberate about this. This is a national issue. There is 78% of Ugandans living in parks. It's a national issue. And therefore it's incumbent upon us to find a solution. Every single one of us has to be part of the solution. And we have to be deliberate about that. That in the government budget, it has to be clear, this is youth. In every private sector, there has to be a youth agenda. Because my bank has been here over 100 years. I'd like for it to be here another 100 years. That is not possible if I'm not taking care of the youth. Yeah. So it has to be deliberate. And part of the work we're doing in this, if I started today to say, okay, I'll take my procurement budget and I'll procure 20% from the youth. They cannot, because they don't have, the standard hasn't been done. The training hasn't been given, the facilitation hasn't been given. So for us, we are building from the ground up. I will start with a secondary school educated child. I will expose them into entrepreneurship. I'll go to the youth entrepreneur. I'll expose them. And my understanding that when you graduate from this facility, I should be able to give you an opportunity to say, can you supply paper to Stanbic? Can you supply catering to Stanbic? Yeah. But at this point in time, because there's also something else as Ugandans we need to be clear about, that let us not look for that, let's not lower the standards. There has to be a minimum standard that we must aspire to. The job then becomes, how do we enable you to get to that standard? So that we don't compromise on that. So that is very clear that the reason why we partner with LC, and our partnership is twofold. One, we will put our resources from the business incubator program, which has been very successful over the last 4 years. We've done this work in the oil and gas sector. Oil and gas sector came and said, we want to employ Ugandans, but we don't have anybody who can meet the standard. We got all Ugandan employers, Ugandan SMEs, and took them through what does it take to produce a good or a service for the oil and gas sector. And as I speak today, those sectors are ready. When we get the FID decision made, it will be Ugandans ready to supply. That now we come up, what is the next sector? We're saying agriculture. Because of the sheer employment potential from an agriculture point of view, that whether you've seen the blackboard or not, yeah, it's very clear that you can find space in agriculture. As a farmer, as a semi-skilled, whatever your skill level, there's room for you to grow. So we are doing a lot of support for agriculture. And we are also lending our voice and our platform, because we have a big platform, which we intend to use, to say that, to take away the stigma. That when you're 25 years old and you stand with your age mates to say that I'm a farmer, it's a point of pride. It is a point of pride. People are not looking at it.
But how do you do that when in schools you went to the farm as a punishment? That's where it begins. That if you have come late, you go slashing. If you come very late, you go to the school farm. So if we have consumed agriculture as a punishment, how does one then grow up out of that punishment and the horror associated to it? Then you stand up and tell everybody, Ola and Sandra, I am a farmer. And also tell the passport office to include it in your profession, farmer.
I really wish you were with us last weekend when we had the education platform. And we had a representative from the Ministry of Education. And I was very pleased to hear that one of the things they've done as a policy at a national level is to remove that kind of punishment in schools. It is gone. And that is the beginning of shaping the mindset. Because the truth of the matter is that in the private sector, we cannot take on the employment. I mean, Stanbic has been over 100 years here, and the most we employ is 1,700. And with digitization and everything, that number will become smaller, or I will look for different skills. So therefore, we have a platform to use this as a voice to say that you can, and also just redefining value. What is value? We always think that I must go and supply to the Netherlands for me to be able to create value. The most successful companies have looked around themselves, found a problem, and looked for a solution to that problem. So how do we teach our youth to be problem solvers? Because that is creating value, and that is where sustainable development comes from. Yeah. So back to the other question about how are we as a bank opening our doors a little wider. Ordinarily, in the narrow definition of what banking would do, I wouldn't have a table here. Yeah, but I'm here and I spent countless hours to say, what do we need to do to grow that part? Because the future of our nation is there. So when you talk about removing the fine print, this is one of the things we do. Now, by the way, the fine print is there to help both you and the bank. But when
does it have to be fine print?
It need not be, which is why.
Let it be the
which is why we are saying, let us empower you to understand it.
The fine print.
Let us give you the skills you need. Let us train you. Let us walk the journey with you, such that the fine print doesn't scare you. So when you see a bank, you're not saying, oh my God, how do I? Because you are clear about what your plan is, because you are empowered, you're able to stand and the fine print doesn't scare you, which is why we are debunking the mystery of banking. Yeah, and you will see in our new program that we're rolling out, we are also trying to indigenize banking. That if you keep banking in English, your We talk about financial inclusion, but you're deliberately excluding those who don't speak the language. Yeah. If all your material is in a particular language, anybody who doesn't, you're automatically leaving them out. And a big part of Ugandans are in that category. So we as a bank have woken up to say that the people we serve, we must listen to the people we serve. The people we serve will not have financial records for 5 years unless we teach them how to produce a financial record. The people we serve will not have capital unless we partner with LC to say, how do we work with you to provide that? The people we serve will not have a technical knowledge unless we open it up and partner with the private sector to be able to do that. So this is a journey, and we are walking this journey. And I'm very proud today to be sitting here with all you guys. Thank you for making the time. This is, and especially in the COVID times, because whatever was hard, just what happened? If you didn't have money,
Just 1-2 seconds, and then we will be back on.
Okay.
I will definitely check your banking paperwork.
It started.
If I find fine print, you will certainly see a tweet about it.
Yeah, and the fine print, because even if as Stanbic I remove it, yeah, maybe the people want.
You begin by removing.
What I'm giving you is a sustainable skill. That wherever you go, you'll be able to understand the fine print. Let me help you to understand it. Let me help you to debunk the mystery from it. Then you're able, in wherever you go, you're able to do that. But as I close, I have a message for you.
Just before you close,
yes.
We spoke about the importance of vocational education and skilling and all, and I'd like to talk about exemplars. Do you think it would help people who talk about the importance of vocational education after their children are done with Cambridge curricula, wherever they go to the dollar schools, to bring them into our skills facilities, the children of Anne, the children of Honorable Maria, Honorable Nachuala, Lillian's children, Gideon's? When we see your children there, we will bring our children because we want the contact of these kids. Do you think that that's possible, or are we asking too much?
It's not only possible, it's absolutely imperative that we do. Because this is what the world is changing, and I'm glad you asked that question. That in the past, it was okay to just have IQ. I mean, we looked at your grading, what did you get PLE, what did you get in O-levels, and that's it. Based off of that, we gave you a job. Gideon very ably talked about the emotional quotient, the EQ. Can you now communicate? Can you write a paper? Can you express yourself? Now we are talking about a third requirement, which you will not get in a normal school, and which is why our children, or anyone's children, must be given that polytechnic institutional training. And that is the adversity quotient. That can you roll with the punches? And when the world throws you a curveball, are you able to catch it? When you get a lemon, can you make lemons out of it? And that is a critical skill that as employers or even future employment creators are seeking for, which we don't have. So the answer to your question is a very reasonable question.
Okay, your closing thoughts.
My closing remarks are to the youth. First, I already said thank you. So again, one more time, thank you very much for being here. But to the youth, and Ugandan's youth, by the way, I think have been unfair to them because they're not looking for free things. Your typical Ugandan youth is looking for an opportunity. Give me a chance. That's what they're asking us to do. Give me a chance. So are we, from a deliberate national policy level, creative? So when I stand up as Stanbic to say, I want to be able to give the youth a chance, how many more follow? And when they follow, what does it mean? What incentives can we give for that to happen? So the Ugandan youth is looking for a chance. But also to the Ugandan youth, I read this just this morning. It's very critical. That whatever you are not changing, you are choosing. So you have the power in your hands to change your destiny as long as you're willing to work. The ambassador put it very clearly. There are no free things are not sustainable. Yeah. If you put that machine to be rented at a reasonable cost, yeah, they put a tractor at sub-county level, let it be rented. The price of rent will take care of the machines and the repairs. And therefore, we don't have to say government is young, because we already have a fund within ourselves that provides for the maintenance. So to the youth, the stage is set, the support is there, and I want to encourage you to please tap into opportunities such as this one, so that together we can move Uganda forward. This is our home, and we must be part of driving it.
Very interesting there. I don't care whether you have a university degree or not, but if you are as fluent and as eloquent as I'm here, the opportunities will certainly be increased. I have defended.
But you're closing out.
I'm not
closing out other people.
No, I'm not. But if you can, because you don't, I've met a lady who hasn't gone very far in higher education. You cannot believe when she starts speaking. You will debate whether she's lying about having gone far with education or not. So these things can actually be done. And I was saying that I have had to defend my daughter's decision to become a chef, even when somebody had offered a scholarship to go to medical school somewhere in Eastern Europe. She said, "Daddy, I want to be a chef." And then we had a conversation. She said, "I just want to cook." So every time we visit places, the first thing she runs is the kitchen. And I've made up my mind, once she's done with her O-levels, she goes somewhere to learn to cook, as long as she promises. We have a contract. Yeah, we have a contract. Before she leaves, she has to come back and work in Uganda for 10 years. That's how I do these things. And the other who wants to become a lawyer after senior 6 vocational, then she can continue with law school. You can talk about not having freedom in my house, but you see, you got to guide things. If it is my money, I choose how it is used. In a certain sense, it comes very hard to get it. We'll get into a documentary, and when we come back, the closing remarks from the chief convener here, who is very, very African dressed.
Youth unemployment poses a serious political, economic, and social challenge to the country, including its leadership. The country is at risk of losing the potential benefits of its largest age demographic, as many of the youth are unemployed due to the insufficient creation of decent jobs. While jobs are key to moving young people out of poverty, they are also crucial to preventing the type of marginalization that can spill into radicalization and conflict. The few youths that are employed are in vulnerable employment characterized by low pay and job insecurity. Growingly, the country is looking to entrepreneurship to help solve the problem. This will not only enable the youth to get out of unemployment, but also empower them to offer jobs to others. However, the youth are unable to tap into available economic opportunities due to the absence of appropriate startup financing products for young entrepreneurs.
One of the biggest challenges we've faced as a startup in Uganda is access to financing. And this is really very similar to most of the other startups in the country.
We are an export company, so reaching customers has been a bit of a problem because cost of air freight have more than doubled, which increases the costs for the final customer. And it's been grappling around how to deal with that. And of course, we had another challenge prior to COVID, which was the low-cost invasion and the premature rains.
The youth generally face challenges of access to the right talent to develop their respective enterprises. Many of them, they say, don't need the money, but they need access to quality talent.
And lastly, the challenge has been a lack of business movement support, which is really very key for entrepreneurs to take their enterprises to the next level.
While Uganda's youth are renowned for being highly enterprising, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, many of these enterprises suffer from a high mortality rate. The outbreak of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has not only caused a global health emergency and created new challenges, disrupting economic activities, but also threatening the survival of many small and medium enterprises, SMEs, thus aggravating the youth unemployment situation in Uganda. Despite the strides the government of Uganda has made in addressing the issue, including Youth Livelihood Program, Operation Wealth Creation, Green Jobs Program, Songhai Pilot Initiative, Money for SACCOs, these efforts have not sufficiently addressed the issue.
Thank you very much. Right there, thank you very much. I know that Mildred Tuhaisa is preparing for her bulletin NDS live at 1, so we've got about a few minutes to close this one out. Madam Elsie, your closing remarks, then we get into the launch by signing here. All that in 3.5 minutes.
First, let me sincerely thank you, Samson, for great moderation here. I would like to thank the Honorable Ministers once again for having you here, for raising the occasion. Excellencies, the ambassadors, Ambassador Kilonzo, Ambassador Heng, thank you very much for coming. Business leaders, Gideon, you're here with us. You've always been with us. Thank you very much. And Stanbic, once again, I mean, this is women power here. Thank you very much for the great collaboration and for the leadership and co-leadership of this. And certainly to you, Lillian, for bringing the voice of the youth, but importantly also bringing conversations to shape the future. I think we are in an unprecedented time, and it calls for unprecedented actions. In other words, we can't do things the same way and expect different results. We have to do things differently. Our asset in Africa is our youth. It's our wealth. It's our future. And we have to invest in that. And one of the things that we have seen from COVID, whilst it has impacted us negatively, is the opportunities that COVID has brought to us. In other words, digital innovations, e-governance, banking differently. You were talking about banking in West Africa. The banks come to you, they go to the markets. They go with their cameras and take the pictures there. You don't have to go to them. So we have to do things differently. So the disruption that we have seen with COVID means that we have to invest. And investing also means that we invest in the youth. Now, this facility that we are launching today, for me, is one of the viable options to complement the actions of government with development partners, private sector, civil society. And we are calling upon all to support this initiative. I think Anne and myself are taking the lead, but it's an example to show that the private sector and the development agencies can work together. And this is novel. In the past, we'll be doing our own thing, they're doing their own thing, but we're coming together. I think today's meeting also called for strong partnership amongst us. We can see that different partners are doing different things, but we are not speaking together. And I think this is the space for us to start to reflect again, what can we do together? How can we make sure that, if you're doing something, we don't repeat the same thing? And I think that's something that we need to reflect on, a partnership platform moving forward. Now, I can only say that investing in business is better. We are looking now in the Vision 2040, we are looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. We are talking about the decade of action in the UN. What is that decade of action? The decade of action means that empowering our youth. We have lit a fire today that is unstoppable. And I think that we need to keep that fire there. That means that let's work together. And to the youth who are listening to me, you are the future of Uganda. You are the future of Africa. You are the future of the world. And we encourage you to take this opportunity, seize it, and other opportunities that are available to you to make sure that we can take our continent to where it has to be. So I just want to thank everybody once again for making this, for us being together on this particular partnership. I'm really grateful to you, Anne, for launching this together with UNDP, and for us in the UN family, it is a delight to see that we have built something that is very different. So thank you once again, and let's continue working together.
Of course, I'll thank the young people at NBS. We'll all give that a very big hand clap in terms of closing remarks. So you will lead the way with Anne, the signing of the board, and then the rest, I think, will follow suit. The social distancing somewhere in there. I have sanitized those especially the one Anne will be using. I spent half a tin on that. We'll pick this one and then sign off the board with, yes, 2 ladies here. I always like things led by ladies. Men don't need any help. They have a lot more than they need. Fantastic.
You sign and I sign.
Okay, fantastic.
Cross-fertilization.
Okay. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah?
Okay, this, the other way around. Okay, fine. There are color things in here. Okay, fantastic. Got the pictures there. Then we'll do the signing in the next minute and a half, and then we will have the rest in there. So we can do the signing, I think. Fantastic, yes. Right on. Let's see who has the longest signature. I was told that when people have very long signatures, it means they don't sign a lot of paperwork. Mine, you can turn the paper upside down and still signing. Then we'll have the honorable ministers coming into the signing as well. I'm trying to make sure that everybody signs live on air. Fantastic. This is very important to get done for those of you watching this live on NBS, because I've already said that if we senior youth and
what is not clear is
yes.
how do people access you? You know, it hasn't come out very well. What is the modus operandi? How do they?
So basically, what we're going to do is yeah. So thank you, Honorable Amelia, for that. So basically, from here, what we're going to do is that we're going to post it on our UNDP website. It will have all the guidelines on what needs to be done to access the funding under the 3 instruments. Certainly also on Stambic's website. We're going to link it to the UN family broadly so that there will be links if you access another UN, our website, you can be able to link to another. So we will find different ways of doing that. I think we're also going to have some sort of communication drive and also getting the information to the ground. Like you said, not everybody's looking at the television, not everybody might have internet where they are. So how do we share that information? So we're going to find different instruments to share information, including through your office and
So the signing will continue as we segue out into NBS Live at 1, which I do know that will be airing a few minutes from now. And I think my parting thoughts will always be that if we senior youth and then the very, very senior youth don't get involved in having young people employed and we amass wealth, they'll come in the night to want to have a bit of that wealth. So the only way we can stop them from coming to our houses is to make sure that they make their own wealth and the wealth of those aged within their brackets. I've never seen the point why invest so much money in a fence and then an electric fence and then a dog and then a gunman. Why don't you just give that money to the people in your community so that they don't have to come to your house anyway? But maybe it is me being very naive. After all, I don't know how to live the life of the billions and the millions. Mine is a life of the hundreds and the thousands. And that's why I'm taking you to Mildred to Haise, who lives the life of the hundreds, the south of the thousands, as we continue the signing here. We'll go over into our bulletin. Ladies and gentlemen, please, Your Excellencies, please come and do the signing as well. I think we have still been given another 30 seconds to bring in Anne and get you in there. Where has it rolled? Okay, fantastic. I've always told people who say I'm a tall man that I'm not very tall. Now we know that I'm not very tall. There are people who are really probably tall. Gideon, you also pretend to be tall. Now we know. Okay. All right. Anyway, I'm bored. Gideon, are you sure that's a signature? Okay. Very, very interesting there. I think that is it for the morning. We'll hand you over back. On behalf of the technical crew here, headed by Marcel, who has another name, Nigerian name I can never matter, and on behalf of everybody on camera and everybody in the control room, Becca Zena and all that have kept this together, and everybody at NBS, thank you so much. Until next time, it is good afternoon into NBS Live at 1. Handed